Hey there. So here's the female anatomy figure that ships with ZBrush. This is my colored version. So I've painted it up, and so that's what I'm going to use because it's just cooler, doesn't it? It looks cooler. So I'm a little happier with that one. But you can use either one. So now the question, the task we have, is we need to organize this wonderful figure, sculpted by yours truly, into something that's going to be easy for us to compare to an animal. All right, so it took me a while to kind of try to break this down, but the easiest, the most direct comparison to anything else, to any other creature, is going to have to do with actions. So we know, bear with me, I've just got a little bit of lecture here. Muscles really do one thing, okay? They just pull. That's the thing they do. They pull on point A from point B, or they pull on the insertion from their origin. That's it. And then as they pull, they get larger. And so this, they pull over joints, so we got to keep this in mind. They're pulling over joints, and they're just a really basic pulley system. So we can look at a very mechanical setup here. Let's just put some kind of simple structures in there that could represent anything. All right, and now I'm going to put a little anchor right at the top of that. And you might start to notice that this is kind of this looks like an arm, or it could be an arm, and that's what I'm trying to do here. So at the top, that's the acromion process and the scapula, let's say. All right, and so in terms of a muscle, we're going to have the bicep, which is going to go over the head of the humerus. It's going to come down, and it's going to then insert into the forearm. Okay, and the function of that is to flex the arm and bring this thing upwards so that we are getting it into this stage, and then our hand is doing that business. Okay, so as the bicep flexes, pulls the arm up. Okay, and that is in contrast to what's happening in the back with the tricep, which is also coming up to the scapula and then coming down to the lower part, to the forearm, the olecranon process, right? And then it's straightening this out, doing what they call extending or extension. Okay, and it's extension because it's not the full range of motion. It actually has a point in which it really stops. So it's going to stop right there, and you're not going to get much more motion out of it. And that's our secret. Okay, that's the thing that's going to lump everything together. Because now if we take a look at, say, the hip of an animal, all right, we're going to come down. We've got our femur. Okay, this is then connecting to the tibia, which is then connecting to the metatarsals and all of that stuff, and then connecting to the phalanges from there. Same situation. We're going to have something that's flexing or extending and is bridging some sort of joint. Okay, these are the kinds of things that we're going to be thinking about. So in this case, they might be anchored to the femur, but coming down to the tibia. Okay, they may be anchored to the ischial spine, but then coming down to the tibia. Okay, but either way, whether or not they're crossing two joints or one joint, they're crossing joints, and they're either flexing or extending. All right, long story short, everything is about flexing and extending. So a muscle pulls, but it's not enough to say that a muscle pulls. Okay, that's not enough to say encompass all action. What we have to say is that a muscle either flexes a joint. So I'm going to write this down so you have special emphasis. A muscle is going to either flex a joint, or it's going to extend a joint, or well, you could say joint. And in fact, Elliot Goldfinger in his books, he refers to things as elbow flexor, wrist flexor, and shoulder flexor, shoulder extensor. So he's referring to it in this direction. So a bicep, what is that doing? Is that flexing an arm? Well, that's our common language. But in all actuality, the bicep is, let's write it down here. The bicep is flexing the elbow. So this is one of those pieces of information you want to get from Elliot Goldfinger's book and others like him. And you want to put that in your head and keep it because it's gold, all right? The tricep is actually an extensor of the elbow. And if you remember that, then you're going to be set up to be able to do everything that you need to do from here. So I'm going to give you a quick pop quiz on that. So what happens down here? What happens on either side of that forearm? Okay, what is it flexing or extending? Remember, always look down the bone. So you've got a couple of things. Wrists. You've only got two. Wrist and fingers. So the muscles above the wrist, they're going to do one of two things. They are going to either flex the wrist and the fingers, or they're going to extend the wrist and the fingers. Okay, so in a human, depending on especially if we're looking at as though there's a fist right here, okay, these are going to be flexors of the wrist, flexors of the fingers, and then in the back you're going to get extenders or extensions of the wrist, extension of the fingers. Pretty basic. Now, in an animal, let's look at the back in the leg again. What are we going to have in the front portion? What are we going to have in the back portion of the lower leg? We're going to be having flexors and extensors of basically the ankle or the foot or the digits, whatever you want to call it. Let's say that's an ankle. That's a foot. Those are digits. Okay, digits is another word for phalanges, for toes, for fingers, but it's very neutral. Everybody understands digits, and number one, it's a heck of a lot easier than phalanx or phalanges or any of that stuff. All right, so then what's each one of these doing? Let's just pull our little tendon down and then decide what it's doing. So what's the muscle in the back doing? Well, it's extending the foot, meaning that it is taking this foot and it is pulling it back. And that means that this is flexing the foot and the digits. Okay? Sorry, not the digits really, actually, because this is one of the really cool things. It's kind of hard. Why is the muscle that's flexing the foot, why is it extending the digits? Okay, let's make sure this is really clear. We're going to put a little round thing there. Because the digits, their natural movement is going to be in this direction. So pulling them back to a point of rest is going to be an extension. Okay, easy to get a little confused there, but especially with this board I've written here. Okay, I'm going to clear this board and I'm going to make it real clear. flexing or flexion, extension. That's what we're talking about. And of some joint. Okay? Or part. Such as foot, hand, things like that. Flexing and extending. So now let's go through our model and let's group it, the whole thing, according to flexing and extending a joint. Okay, and we don't need to remember exactly which one they're doing. We can just look at where their insertion is and go from there. And so this is a bit of a discovery process. All right, I'm going to do that in the next section.